Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Enough channel. In this video we're going to look at our tops, chops, traps and slaps for round 13 of the 2024 NRL SuperCoach season. So I guess the first big buy round, so a lot of trading going on this week. So I guess our best opportunity to get in and have a look at the options. So how it works for those that are new to the concept is if we've got a trading option this week that we think is a good idea, well, that's tops. We'll give them the thumbs up. If we think someone should be traded out, it's a good idea to do so. We'll give them the chop. If people are trading in someone that we're not too convinced is a good idea, we're probably going to consider that to be a trap. And if someone's trading out a player that we think they should keep, well, we need to give them a good hard slap. So going by position, starting at hooker, as we tend to do. Excuse me. I've got the cheapie of the week and the best option to trade in at hooker as Brendan Hands. So I have been massive on bringing in Jeremy Marshall-King or maybe Reid Marnie if you can swing it with your Bulldogs assets as that sort of hooker that will play through a lot of the Origin games. But I guess if you're looking to make a bit of cash this week, downgrade to upgrade elsewhere, well, I think the best downgrade option is Brendan Hands, given that he has been named to start this week. Joey Lussick is out of the on the extended reserve, so not out of the squad entirely. I guess the advantage with this is they do play the first game of the week, so you do get to see final team lists. If they do try the two hooker thing, well, then maybe it might be worth avoiding. But I guess based on team lists, I think, you can bring in Hands. It's a bit of a short-term play. There is a great option next week, which I'll talk about in just a second. So I think, for a short-term little cash grab, easy way to get some points this week if you're really struggling, Brendan Hands is the best option. Obviously, with Hands in, it means Lussick is definitely out. So even if he gets named on the bench, he's just not going to do the job for us. So I think, at that middling price, you cut and run. Obviously, if you can go up to one of the keepers, you certainly can. But if you need to cash out that about 170k, use it elsewhere, you could definitely swap the Eels hookers over. The trap this week, I've gone with Mitch Kenny. So I guess a few people might be attracted by the sort of lowish price, the nice break even. But I guess Kenny is very much a defensive hooker. He's not really known for his attacking runs and tries and assists and that sort of thing. He distributes the ball to the halves there at Penrith who can do the rest from there. So can definitely see the temptation of bringing in particularly Penrith assets this week with a nice matchup against the undermanned Dragons team. But I don't think Mitch Kenny is your best avenue there. And the slap this week, I've gone with Api Coruscant. So if you've got him, you are absolutely going to want to hold on to him after he missed out on the Origin team. So he has a bye this week, obviously, which isn't helpful. But after that, he will cover the rest of the Origin bye period right up until I think round 26 is their third and final bye. So, you're going to be wanting to bring some Tigers assets in next week. He's one of the top 3 targets I've got for next week. So, I guess, if there is an argument to maybe go a week early and bring him in this week, if you do need to, make sure that you've got enough trades for the other 2 big hitters. Excuse me. Which I think we cover in the rest of this video. If not, I'll sort of let you know at the end. So Api Coruscant, do not trade out. Into the front row, and the top pick this week, I've gone with Liam Henry from the Panthers. So, I talked about wanting to get on Penrith assets. I think Henry is the best shout from all of them this week, given he is still fairly cheaply priced. -8 break-even's always nice when you've got negative break-even. And he's been named to start on the edge. So pretty interesting decision. I think he'll play that sort of role a few teams are adopting now, where the player starts on the edge, plays 25, 30 minutes, then moves into the middle for the other 25, and then they'll spell after 55 and can come back on for a little final stint if need be. And from all reports, he's got that sort of motor and workload that he could handle a position like that. So I think if you're looking for a front row option this week, he is clear and away the number one option. On the chopping block, I've gone with Ruben Cotter. So, the break even might be enough to scare people off, not wanting to lose value. But we do know with Ruben Cotter that, he usually puts a lot of energy into Origin, ends up playing ridiculously big minutes. As soon as they need someone to cover an edge, they seem to slot him out there. Having the extra back on the bench this year might sort of preclude that, but it may just mean he plays bigger minutes in the middle. So I think, with that, he does tend to tail off in the back end of seasons. So I think this is the perfect time to cut and run from Ruben Cotter. The trap this week in the front row, I've gone with Nafahu White, named to start at lock for the Roosters. And they've got a fairly small bench, probably one of the smallest benches I've ever seen when you include Sandon Smith and Michael Jennings. And then their two forwards, Siwa Wong and Satili Tupanua. Possibly could do a job in the middle, but I guess what I see is Radley sort of slotting into the 13 spot after a while. And I can't imagine Nafahu White getting that many more minutes compared to what he's used to. They also have Nat Butcher as well, who could probably slide into the middle also. Um, so for that reason, he's got a nice break even, nice price obviously, but if you're looking for a front row, I'd be going Liam Henry every day of the week over Nafahu White. And the slap rather this week, I've gone with Payne Haas. So I guess this probably also applies to Adam Fanua-Blake. They're the top two props in the game. It's not worth two trades to access their cash in the short term because you're going to want to bring it back eventually. And Payne Haas, he will play big minutes for New South Wales, but he will back up and play big minutes for the Broncos. So there's no need to stress on Payne Haas. Just, set and forget. That's what we do with those guys. Fanua-Blake obviously is another one. If you don't have him, he is the second target for next week. Given the Warriors will cover round 16 and 17. And then I think they don't play 19, but then their last bye is not till round 27. Excuse me. In the second row, I've gone the top pick as Jacob Preston. All right, so I guess another example here of a player out with Viliami Kikau. So we cut him, but we bring Preston in. The Bulldogs do have a good run with the buys. They cover 13, 14, 16, 17. Just remember they have the buy in round 15, so don't overload on Bulldogs. However, Preston's a proven SuperCoach asset, nice break even, decent value. So I think everything sort of lines up to make him the top pick this week. I touched on Kikau, obviously out with a injury for about a month. And we did mostly have him as a good buy cover type player with a bit of upside. So I think also with Matt Burton out of Origin, it sort of does mess up that left edge a little bit. So I don't think it's worthwhile holding Kikau. The trap this week, I guess controversially, I've gone with you on Aitkins. Obviously, the Dolphins have really great buy coverage, playing the three big buy rounds, 13, 16, 19. I guess it just comes down to value. At 650k, he's just about peaked in price, and it's sort of an awkward one. He might be a borderline keeper in the second row, but doesn't really offer the upside to be a keeper in the centre wing. He is dual position, which is handy as well. So I think, as you can see, for 100k less, you can get Preston. If you want the Dolphins coverage, I think you can get Max Plath for 150k cheaper, who offers probably, just as much, if not a more solid base. Maybe even a bit of a left field option like a Scott Sorensen from the Panthers could be, a viable second row option. So I think, if you wanted to, you could bring in Aitken. This definitely isn't the biggest trap in the video. But I guess just something to keep in mind is that we are still chasing value as we go through these buy rounds. And the slap, I've gone with Angus Crichton. Um, I think he's a keeper till the end of the season. The one argument I would have for not keeping Angus Crichton is if you need to find some money to bring in David Fafita. So he'll be the third one that we're targeting next week on top of Appy Coruscant, Adam Fanua Blake, David Fafita. I've already got them written in my notes for round 14. Tops, chops, traps, and slaps, they are locked in as top picks unless there's some sort of freak injury. So if you can, try and hold Crichton because you'll want him when he is available. But, I can understand if you need the cash. He's only going to play one game in the next 4 rounds, given the Roosters have the bye next weekend. So it is a lot of money sitting on the bench for that amount of time. So, it is an understandable move. But like I said, I'd probably hold over till next week and then make the move. Into the halfbacks, and the top pick this week is the returning Mitchell Moses. Um, so, probably fourth on that list of, top tier halfbacks after Nico Hines, Nathan Cleary, Sean Johnson, probably third, and then Mitchell Moses. And, what we like about them, the goal kicking halfbacks, the dominant halves in their team, not afraid to run at the line. So, you know, Mitchell Moses is one we would have probably targeted earlier, if not for the injury. He has come back just in time for us, so we can absolutely, slot him in if we are trading out this week. So I've got Ben Hunt on the chopping block. I sort of had him and DCE on the same sort of level, just given they're playing Origin. They're pretty well established in the Queensland team. And I guess they're that sort of next tier down where they're solid, do have the occasional spike game, but not kicking goals. Not being the strongest ball runners. Ben Hunt probably is a bit of a elite ball runner, sort of in that category. But I guess the lack of goal kicking does limit his upside. So for that reason, I've got Ben Hunt on the chopping block just because he was higher on the list at the time of recording in terms of trade outs. The trap this week, I've gone with Brad Schneider from the Panthers. So, the numbers look really good. Cheap at 476, negative break even. He will kick the goals. But I just think it's not a long term play. Mitchell Moses, you can potentially hold right through Origin, if not to the end of the season at a pinch. Whereas, Schneider is going to cost you 2 trades. I guess the argument could be that, well, he's going to get traded from Cleary when he comes back. It's a straight swap. That might work. But again, it's extra trades that you're wasting, or not wasting, but using to make that move. So I guess just be mindful that it's not a long term play. But if you're only worried about coverage for the next couple of weeks, probably, potentially even better pick than Moses on value. And the slap, I've gone with Nico Hines. The 190 break even. A lot of people will be willing to trade or tempted to trade back in when he drops in price. But you got to ask yourself, is it worth 2 trades? There's some of us that have already made a couple of trades around Nathan Cleary. Not that I'm one of them. I think even when Nico was out with the calf, a couple of people did drop him, bring him back in. So, you don't want to be wasting too many sort of trades in one position like halfback. Particularly, given the weeks he will play, you'll want to keep him. So, obviously, not ideal we don't get his score this week, but again, it's the same for everyone. So, it's not the end of the world, but I wouldn't trade him out. Onto the 5/8s, and I guess in a bit of a pattern here, I've gone the top pick to be the Eels option, Dylan Brown, and I've also gone the trap to be the Panthers option of Jack Cole. But I'll talk about Dylan Brown first. So obviously dual position, 700k. The cavalry's coming back for the Eels with Moses and Gutherson back in, which is only going to help Dylan Brown free him up to do his thing a bit more. So Moses was out just long enough that he got that dual position, which is really nice. Him and Matt Burton have that really good combination where you can swing them around. Obviously, if Burton was playing this week, that would be a lot nicer. Um, but it is what it is. Tommy Dearden is on the chopping block this week, obviously named in the Queensland team with Cam Munster's injury. So for those that were holding, hoping he'd play this round, I think you do have to move on. He won't play round 16 or 19. And then the Cowboys still have another bye post Origin. So, you're not going to get that much out of him in the second half of the season. He'll still do all right when he plays. He'll just be not playing a bit more often than others. As I said, Jack Cole I've got as the trap. With Brad Schneider's return, this could be his last game. So it is literally a 1 week cash grab if you're bringing him in this week. Obviously, the price is appealing, the break even's appealing, the opposition appealing, but it's they're just not long term players. Schneider's probably the best of the lot, but Kenny doesn't offer the upside. Jack Cole doesn't offer the job security. And the slap, I've gone with Lockie Galvin. So, he's made 300k and he's still got a negative break even, which means he's got more money to make. As we talked about with Appy, the Tigers awesome coverage after this week. So if you can hang on for one more week, you've got a locked in 5/8 for the rest of the Origin period. And I guess, I know the plan for my team is at that time is around when Nathan Cleary is coming back. So it's going to hopefully be an easy enough switch to go from Galvin to Nathan Cleary, and I've got, my elite halves covered. Onto the centre wing, and the top pick this week is David Armstrong from the Knights. So, negative 53 break even means he's still got a lot of cash to make. You are paying close to 200k up on what he was weeks ago, but he's doing well. The Knights are going well. They've got to get home game this week against the Dogs, so the Knights always go good at Newcastle, despite how good the Dogs' defence has been. So I think for that reason, you just got to get him in. On the chopping block, I've gone with Jacob Gagai. So for those that held or for those who got on before his third game, we sort of were hoping he'd make some money. He's returned, I think, 2 sub-20 scores. So his cash has stopped at 100k, 69 break even. So if you're looking to, make a number this week and you've got a bit of cash, I would definitely look at upgrading Jacob Gagai. The trap this week in the centre wing, I've gone with Joey Manu. And this is mostly down to the fact that he's not going to get to play fullback as he does normally at this time of year. With James Tedesco obviously missing out on Origin selection. So if you've got him, he's not a trade out. He's definitely a hold. He can do the job. But, it will be a bit harder for him to hit that ceiling, given that he is still playing in the centres. And Kale Ero is the slap. So, a lot of people thinking, he's made his money. It's time to move him on. I'd hold him this week. He's playing this week. And then after that, if you need to use his money to start bringing in those, elite keepers that you want, absolutely do it. But I think, he could be very valuable this week and is not a trade out. And onto the fullbacks, and it was always going to be James Tedesco as the top pick. Break even at 28 means that he's got a bit of value in him. Point to prove after being dumped from the Origin team. Playing Sunday afternoon, so perfect captaincy option for this round. It ticks all the boxes. It's just whether you've got the opportunity to bring him in. On the chopping block, I've gone with the hammer. So he'll only play 2 of the next 7 games, given that he's playing Origin. And the Dolphins have a bye next weekend, but also round 18. So he'll only be available round 15 and 17. before round 20. So for that reason, it's a bit of money to sit on the bench. You can definitely use that to upgrade in the centre wing or elsewhere. Or obviously, if you can get to a Tedesco at fullback, that would be a mint trade. So I would recommend doing something like that and getting out of the hammer. The trap, I've gone with KO Weeks. So obviously, still doing pretty well for the Raiders, but the thing is that his value is starting to diminish in the sense of his break even is positive now. So he's already made 150k. He's probably not going to make that much more. The Raiders do have a bye next weekend, so you'll have to hold him for that. Um, so I think for that reason, he's one not to bring in. If you've got him again, you hold him. He will cover round 16 at 17, I believe. Um, so it's useful for that. But yeah, just I guess there's better value options at the moment. And the slap, I've gone with Dylan Edwards. So it was probably always going to be these two in this position, um, just depending on who got the nod. But I mean, Dylan Edwards will miss the three Origin rounds, but that's the end of the Panthers' buys. Is round 16, 19, so he'll, in theory, play every other round. May get rested, being his first Origin campaign at some stage. Um, but I think you could definitely hold. Obviously, there is an appeal of trading him to Teddy, making 100k. If you're picking him to play this week, it does make sense. But again, if you want him for the back end of the season, that's going to cost you two trades: the trade out, trade back in. So yeah, so I guess that's the tops, chops, traps, and slaps for round 13. As I said, I've already previewed some of round 14. So just make sure you are prepared for that as well when you are making trades. There is a temptation to make sure you've got 13 guns this week, or some people like to have 17 because you can't name 17. But the reality is that we do need to make sure we are well covered going forward. It's not just about this week. Um, so just, I guess, be smart with your trades. Um, other than that, as always, feel free to comment down below. Give us a like if you enjoy the analysis. Subscribe for all the fantasy sports content. And other than that, we'll see you in the next one.